Story 8. More Secrets. Posted on October 17, 2021. Today, I present to you the 8th part of the Fat Tinkerbell series. The following is a true story experienced by the author. All characters are still alive and kicking to this day. Recap. On the last story, Horrible Secret, we talked about how Fat Tinkerbell was told a secret about RoboCop. Her dream man himself. Mrs. Help at the help center was the one who let her in on a secret. Basically, she ends up telling her that 1, RoboCop is a hot man, and that even she has the hots for him even though she's a 50-year-old woman. And 2, that a cute, skinny little Barbie who works there with her in that help center actually went and got laid with RoboCop. Just kidding, forget number 1. But she told her that a cute Barbie in there had been intimate with RoboCop. Every 20-year-old girl's wish was made true for that one mystery college Barbie. And I said it already in the previous story, but I'll repeat it for the viewers. Basically, Fat Tinkerbell couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was in denial. She was being told that RoboCop really is one of those hot chads that bang all the hottest chicks. Everything she thought RoboCop was true. That he was a possible father to 3 little kids was beginning to sound like truth. That he was a cheater and cheated on the mother of his 3 babies was beginning to sound like truth. That he fought employees was beginning to sound like truth. That he's possibly sexist and thinks little of women was beginning to sound like truth. That he was a jerk and an asshole and betrayed people left and right was beginning to sound like truth. That he was a street punk was beginning to sound like truth. And so on. These were all just rumors. The only reason he kept his job was because he was besties with the king himself. The king protected RoboCop from everything. In other words, RoboCop was one of the king's favorite soldiers. Fat Tinkerbell never spoke with RoboCop, never interacted with him. We've previously established that he made her feel extremely nervous. Nervous to the point that she couldn't even look at him. Couldn't even look at him. That's how insane the attraction really was. To her, RoboCop was like an army soldier, like a celebrity, like a superhero, like a police officer. Those are the intense feelings he provoked her. No man of any age caused those type of butterflies. Those type of emotions and feelings of excitement. No man of any type drove her to complete obsession and complete curiosity. But let's begin this story. More Secrets. It was around September of 2019. Fat Tinkerbell continued her little experience there at that job in the maze, the most interesting, weirdest, most exciting job she's ever experienced in her life. She was meant to be a soldier and protect the people of the maze and the sellers who lived there. She had her team of soldiers and she had her managers or supervisors who wore gold armor instead of silver. RoboCop was one of her direct supervisors. The hottest man in the entire maze and wanted by all the ladies was her direct leader. How crazy and amazing is that? Who in the world has had the hottest, most badass boy as their manager? Effing nobody! Fat Tinkerbell was loving it. She was loving every day, every experience, everything was so fantastic to her. Just because RoboCop was her main leader. After having heard that the RoboCop slept with a pretty little college Barbie there, at the maze, Fat Tinkerbell surely felt completely broken and at a loss. Like mentioned in the previous story, she felt at a disadvantage and completely incompetent. Of course, hot RoboCop went for the hot college Barbie and wouldn't dare go for Fat Tinkerbell. Fat Tinkerbell didn't know how to proceed with that information. How exactly does one react to such information? She asked herself. Where do I go from here? She asked herself. She felt like she lost the man she wanted. Would someone continue to pursue the person of which they know had a sexual encounter with a certain someone else who also works there in the same area? Basically, in her mind, someone else already took that man from her. Someone else beat her to it. Fat Tinkerbell wanted to be the first girl that RoboCop gets to sleep with at that job. But no, someone else beat her to it. Dreams crushed. And it was yet for Fat Tinkerbell to find out when exactly that took place. Before Fat Tinkerbell existed at that place or a month after, or whatever. After a couple of days of just complete depression from that news, Fat Tinkerbell decided that she wants to know who exactly that hot college Barbie is. She wanted to know what she looks like and who she is. She wanted to at least have an image of what type of look she should be aiming for if she wishes to impress and obtain RoboCop herself. The following days, Fat Tinkerbell visited the help center continuously to find out who this girl is. She would always see some other hot Barbies inside that help center as well as Mrs. Help herself, but she'd never find the girl Mrs. Help had described to Fat Tinkerbell. Basically, when Mrs. Help was telling the secret to Fat Tinkerbell, she had also described who the person that slept with RoboCop was. Mrs. Help said that the hot college Barbie was a brunette with short brown hair. She then said that she has green eyes and that she is like a white girl instead of a tan or Hispanic type of girl. That this girl in question doesn't really speak Spanish and her accent is more like she's American. Like a perfect English type of white, skinny, little brunette college-age girl. Many of the young pretty girls that worked in that help center were of different descent, all young and skinny. They either had long black hair or long blonde hair. The one with the short dark brown hair and the green eyes was nowhere to be seen. Fat Tinkerbell had then gone to Mrs. Help to continue the unending gossip of RoboCop. That is when Mrs. Help tells Fat Tinkerbell that the mystery girl that Fat Tinkerbell has not yet met only works on certain days of the week. Fat Tinkerbell couldn't be more intrigued. She hoped to meet the mystery hot girl that gave it to RoboCop. And just like she was told, the day came when finally Fat Tinkerbell noticed the girl of the description working there in that help center station. Fat Tinkerbell viewed her from afar. There she was, all seated there minding her own business. Fat Tinkerbell couldn't believe her eyes. Just like the description said. It literally was a light-skinned white girl, skinny, young, short brown hair, thin lips, dark eyebrows, perfect nose. Fat Tinkerbell wasn't close enough to note the color of her eyes to see if she has the green eyes like she was told. But there she was, the girl who had sex with RoboCop. The girl who screwed the RoboCop, the girl who helped RoboCop bust some nuts. The girl that got laid with RoboCop. The help center little brat that sleeps with the soldiers of the maze. It was almost an honor seeing the famous RoboCop's blow-up doll. Right there, and in the flesh. Obviously Fat Tinkerbell felt jealous while seeing this person. Fat Tinkerbell couldn't be compared. Fat Tinkerbell isn't much to look at when compared to some young skinny brunette little Barbie. Fat Tinkerbell honestly looked more like an old aunt. Mainly because of her weight, because of her size, because of the shape of her body. Fat Tinkerbell realized that, of course, hot RoboCop and that pretty little white girl are gonna want each other. Hot people want each other and they F each other. Fat Tinkerbell was overweight her entire life. She had no knowledge when it came to dating or going out or getting laid. Or anything of that sort. We've already established that Fat Tinkerbell was someone who's been shamed throughout her life. For her looks, her body, her weight, and her obesity. If it wasn't school peers, both boys and girls, it would be her own family at home. The bullying happened continuously throughout her life. It was unending. Point is, Fat Tinkerbell was an inexperienced virgin at 21. Unlike RoboCop or the hot college brunette there at the help center. Fat Tinkerbell felt so left out while looking at that pretty girl at that help center. Realizing this truth, this reality, had made her feel incompetent. It made her feel like a loser. It made her feel incapable, a loneliness like never before felt. The surge of emotions ranging from anger to envy, to sadness, to loneliness and everything in between was overwhelming. Fat Tinkerbell went back to her patrolling and wondered if RoboCop was still in contact with that girl. She wondered if they're still a thing, or if RoboCop is now taken by some other person, by some random someone else, by some invisible entity. Ha ha ha. Fat Tinkerbell just wanted to know if there was some hope for her, some type of chance. All she wanted was some hope. A chance to free herself from her hideous body, or a chance to experience things she yet has to experience. The following days, Fat Tinkerbell was curious as absolute F to get to know that help center girl. She wanted to know her behavior, she wanted to know her actual looks, she wanted to hear the sound of her voice, she wanted to notice her style and mannerisms. That one day, she had seen her from afar. So she didn't have an exact picture or a high-definition image of her. Fat Tinkerbell just wanted to learn from that person. She wanted to see if in a way, Fat Tinkerbell could get some tips from the famous Barbie who was able to win over RoboCop. She wanted to learn her style and her behavior and be somewhat like her, so that hopefully Fat Tinkerbell could also have a chance with RoboCop herself. And if not, then at least have a chance with some other Chads out there, for the future. Fat Tinkerbell proceeds to enter the area of the maze where the help center was located at. She noticed that brunette girl from afar as she was approaching that help center. Fat Tinkerbell also noticed that there were almost 5 other Barbies surrounding that one brunette Barbie. They were almost like her bodyguards, all standing around her like she's made of gold. Brunette Barbie, aka Robocop's pussy, was there sitting inside that help center desk minding her own business, looking down at her phone. The other girls were standing around in that small space, all crowded in together, talking about everything in the universe nonstop. It sounded like a chicken farm. Ha 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 ha. Fat Tinkerbell had to grab onto her balls and figure out quickly what to say to that group of cheerleaders. To that group of hot Barbies. Fat Tinkerbell had to play it real cool, because whatever she would say to Brunette Barbie, all those other Barbies would hear it. They were literally like nosy bodyguards. Unfortunately, Mrs. Help herself was inside the station, alongside all those Barbies. So Fat Tinkerbell had to speedwalk on the side of Brunette Barbie in order to avoid a conversation with Mrs. Help there. As Fat Tinkerbell approached that area, her heart started running and she began panicking because she didn't know if she was about to make a fool of herself with whatever she was going to try to say to Brunette Barbie. And if the other Barbies would catch her talking to their friend Brunette Barbie on top of it. Regardless, Fat Tinkerbell pretended to be real cool, and she acted as if she was on a rush and speedwalking. As she arrived in front of the Brunette Barbie, who was locked into her phone, the other Barbies immediately noticed Fat Tinkerbell arrive at the scene, and Fat Tinkerbell immediately behaved in a funny, friendly manner. She said hello to all the other Barbies, and Brunette Barbie still had not looked away from her phone to see Fat Tinkerbell. Immediately then, Fat Tinkerbell approaches Brunette Barbie, where she was now face to face with the famous girl who slept with RoboCop. And Brunette Barbie looks up at Fat Tinkerbell, and yes, just like the description said, she had green eyes. Fat Tinkerbell immediately reached out for a map of the maze offered to guests, pretending that she was there for that reason. Then, so that Fat Tinkerbell could be able to hear Brunette Barbie's voice, Fat Tinkerbell begins random small talk. She tells Brunette Barbie about how it's very hot inside that Help Center station. Brunette Barbie then agrees with a smile, and Fat Tinkerbell then asks if they have something for the heat inside of there. And so Brunette Barbie then points at a small fan located inside that Help Center, of which was keeping all those Barbies and Mrs. Help from dying of heat. Fat Tinkerbell then begins laughing with Brunette Barbie, and the rest of the Barbies listening in and laugh as well. Fat Tinkerbell then pretends to be busy with work, and she quickly says bye to the group of Barbies. She then rushed off as if she was just there to take that map of the maze. It was an exhausting and frustrating moment for Fat Tinkerbell, but she did accomplish what she planned, to meet Brunette Barbie for the first time. To notice her features and her looks, to hear the type of voice she has. And all, while keeping her dignity. After having met Brunette Barbie of the Help Center of the maze, Fat Tinkerbell again felt at a loss. Brunette Barbie truly was a pretty young thing. She had the green eyes, she had the short brown hair, she was thin and had a thin body. She had the face of an innocent young high school girl. Brunette Barbie really was like an American type of white girl, and her voice was perfect and clear. Fat Tinkerbell couldn't be compared. There was nothing Fat Tinkerbell could do about that. Fat Tinkerbell was meant to be ugly and fat, and someone like Brunette Barbie was meant to be, well, a Barbie. She didn't even need makeup. Brunette Barbie honestly looked like she came fresh out of high school. Sad face. The days after, Fat Tinkerbell noticed Brunette Barbie in that Help Center whenever she could, and each time it would make Fat Tinkerbell feel discouraged and upset. Soon Fat Tinkerbell began avoiding that Help Center to avoid all those feelings of worthlessness and unworthiness. Fat Tinkerbell would talk and converse with Mrs. Help at the end of the day, when it was just Mrs. Help in that Help Center alone. One of those late nights, Mrs. Help tells Fat Tinkerbell more of that gossip on RoboCop and Brunette Barbie. She ends up telling her that Brunette Barbie had said that the RoboCop was no good in bed, that his D was whack, and that he sucked in bed. Mrs. Help began laughing and making fun of Brunette Barbie in this moment, saying that Brunette Barbie must have had too many shapes and sizes to not feel what RoboCop had, in order to not have been able to enjoy RoboCop. Fat Tinkerbell was enjoying hearing the shit-talking Mrs. Help was doing against Brunette Barbie. Ha 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 ha. Obviously because she was jealous. Mrs. Help got annoyed at what Brunette Barbie had said about RoboCop, and she disagreed and said that, no, Brunette Barbie is the one who sucks. She's the one who's no good in bed. She said in defense of the RoboCop. Fat Tinkerbell tried not to agree or disagree, since Fat Tinkerbell didn't know any better regarding sexual encounters and what is considered good sex or bad sex. Fat Tinkerbell just laughed it off and continued to enjoy the gossip. Fat Tinkerbell went home that night wondering if maybe what Mrs. Help said about Brunette Barbie being promiscuous and having multiple partners had actually made her bad in bed. instead of the RoboCop being bad in bed. She wondered if she'd actually feel better than brunette Barbie because of the 0 partners and 0 sexual encounters she's had. If herself being a virgin at 21 actually was a good thing rather than a lonely sad thing. As the days move along, Fat Tinkerbell one of those days meets another one of the Barbies inside that help center. She meets this one girl. She was of Hispanic descent and had long black curly hair. She was large just like Fat Tinkerbell herself, a big girl. She worked in there with all the slim, pretty, skinny, little Barbies, but she also dressed well, and she behaved all girly and did her hair and all that. Fat Tinkerbell kind of got to know that one girl a couple times. Very rarely that girl would be in there, just like brunette Barbie. Fat Tinkerbell would conversate with this girl every now and then. The day came when Fat Tinkerbell needed answers, so she casually mentions RoboCop and brunette Barbie and about how together they were a thing. That one big girl reacts all thrown off by what Fat Tinkerbell just mentioned. Like if Fat Tinkerbell just discovered something that she herself had done. Soon after, however, Big Barbie there continued the conversation agreeing with Fat Tinkerbell about how brunette Barbie and RoboCop had a thing going on. And she tells Fat Tinkerbell the story about how she herself found out about the whole thing. She says that, one day, as she was working inside that help center with brunette Barbie, just the two of them alone, RoboCop walked up to her and had asked her for some information and left right afterwards. That was when brunette Barbie gets close to her and says, "You know that guy? The one you just spoke with? I effed him." Big Barbie then said that she felt all uncomfortable and weirded out when brunette Barbie had said that to her. She said that the subject of conversation came out of nowhere, that she hadn't even asked or wondered. Regardless, as they had no choice but to work all close up inside that help center together, and sometimes with all the other Barbies, they just got along. Big Barbie also decides to tell Fat Tinkerbell about how brunette Barbie would then tell the story about how RoboCop is no good in the bedroom. About how the RoboCop didn't please her in bed. And she also tells a new part of the story that went like, RoboCop and brunette Barbie effed each other a lot. A whole lot. Fat Tinkerbell then ends up again feeling all incompetent and at a loss. She acted as though the gossip was interesting and insane and crazy, but it was actually making her feel depressed. Hearing about how the guy of her dreams went crazy with brunette Barbie in the bedsheets. That wasn't fun. Regardless, Big Barbie then tells Fat Tinkerbell about how RoboCop is no longer seeing brunette Barbie, that they are no longer a thing. But that RoboCop still has a crush on brunette Barbie and still stares at her like he's in love from afar. Fat Tinkerbell that day went home heartbroken. All her romance dreams with the RoboCop had been crushed into a million pieces. Fat Tinkerbell at that point accepted the fact that RoboCop will never be with her, and she also didn't want a man who is going balls deep inside of other females inside that maze. The same maze that she herself works inside of, the same maze where all the other co-workers are living in, Weed Guy, Harry Potter, King, Diet Coke, Bear Boy, Mrs. Help, Boss Battle, Angel Guy, etc. Fat Tinkerbell was beyond disgusted with characters like brunette Barbie and RoboCop himself. Fat Tinkerbell was beyond angry and disturbed, beyond jealous. She decided to do something that later gets her into trouble like never before. The end. Well guys, that was the real-life true story written by the author of More Secrets. If you haven't read the previous stories, I suggest you do so in order to understand the characters and the storyline. Share this story with whoever needs it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and please let me know in the comments below if you've ever experienced anything like this with your hot boss. If you've seen behavior like that from anyone in your life. If you've ever crushed on your boss or your own bully. Just leave your thoughts on this whole situation down below in the comments. You can find me on BitChute under the same username. You can also find me on DeviantArt under the same username. My second YouTube is EmyyWolf Productions. Also you can find me on Facebook at Flat Level Earth, Flat World Discussion and Controversial Corner. All links in the description here, and at my channel.